It Follows. So It Follows is a 2014 horror film directed by David Robert Mitchell, starring Maika Monroe, Kia Gilchrist, and Olivia Liccardi. Hope I said all of those names correctly. And alongside The Babadook, it was one of the highest rated films of last year, especially in the horror genre, so surely it should be good. And no, in my opinion, The Babadook really deserved the praise it got. It Follows really doesn't, despite the fact that it has some very, very interesting ideas. A concept in itself that is far more interesting, in my opinion, than The Babadook, but it's just executed in a way that really doesn't keep itself going for the whole time. So you end up having a fairly average experience, a okay experience, not bad sort of movie, but nothing to shout about by any means. So let's take a look at the concept, because it is one of the best parts of the film. The idea being that this girl, played by Maika Monroe, is being followed by this creature that literally just walks towards you in a straight line. It just walks, and if it gets you, it's going to kill you. And I think that is a limited, if somewhat interesting premise. There's also the idea that the only way you can get rid of the curse is by passing on to another person, and you do that by having sex with them. It's not done in a stereotypical Friday the 13th, boobed teenagers way. It's actually done quite well, in my opinion. The problems come from the way that it's executed throughout the film, and there's many, many different reasons for that. One thing I'll say is that this film gets a lot of praise for being one of the most original films ever made. I actually saw someone who said that on the internet, and that is not true at all. I mean, don't get me wrong, as far as I know, the premise itself is an original concept, and I don't think it has been done before in another film in any sort of way, even though it carries over themes of the slasher genre. You know, this thing coming for you, it's going to kill you, paranormal slasher. It's an original concept, but it's rooted in many other different genres. And you know, what film isn't? You know, that's not necessarily a bad thing, but the way it's executed isn't entirely original. For example, a lot of the scenes from this film feel like they've been taken straight from Halloween from 1978, which is a fantastic film to emulate and be an homage to, which I think this film sort of is. It's an homage to those sort of slasher horror films from that genre era. But Halloween is at least a very, very good one of those films to emulate, because a lot of them were bad, and this film does a lot of stuff really well in that regard. But I mean, take a look at some of these clips I've put together, and you can see for yourself the similarities between John Carpenter's Halloween and David Robert Mitchell's It Follows.
It's your own fault, and I don't feel a bit sorry for you. Hey, Linda, Lori, why didn't you wait for me? We did. 15 minutes. You totally never showed. That's not true. Here I am.
Thanks for walking. Mom knows you smoke. Yeah, but she'll cry if she actually sees it happening.
Still spooked? I wasn't spooked.
Lie.
I wasn't. Saw somebody standing in Mr. Riddle's backyard.
Probably Mr. Riddle.
He was watching me.
Mr. Riddle was watching you? Lori, Mr. Riddle is 87.
He can still watch.
It's probably all he can do.
So as you can see, there's a lot going on in this film that feels a lot like John Carpenter's Halloween, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. Homages are fine. Tarantino does homages all the time. That's okay. But Halloween executed it a lot better, and I'm literally just using those clips to say that it is not an entirely original way of doing things, and any claims that it is are completely wrong. Doesn't make it a bad thing, but I think people are giving it a little too much praise in the originality department. But there are some things about this film that are very, very good. For example, the cinematography, another element that seems to come somewhat from John Carpenter's way of doing things in Halloween. It seems similar to that, but it's also got its own style to it. I think it's actually very, very good looking. The whole film looks incredible. There are some brilliant, brilliant shots. Another brilliant thing is the soundtrack. It Follows is a fantastic soundtrack of electronic techno tones. It's not like Tron. It's nothing like that. It really adds to this really creepy atmosphere the film's trying to go for, and I think it does a fantastic job. One of the best soundtracks I've heard in a film in a very long time, I have to say. And what the cinematography and the soundtrack and the concept do for the first half of the film is create a very, very good film, a very atmospheric film, a film that does a fantastic job of actually scaring you and creeping you out with a minimum of jump scares. There are a few, but yeah, there's nothing wrong with a few. They're a little bit of fun. Mostly, though, it does a very good job of creeping you out during these bits, and that's really well done. Past the halfway mark though, the film, in my opinion, starts to lose a lot of what made it good. A lot of people are saying that what's so good about It Follows is that you see people walking and it's like, oh, that person's walking, that could be it, that could be it, and it's like, oh, it could be it, they're not going to see it. But this works for a while, definitely, but eventually it's like, yeah, it could be it, but all you need to do is look at it, and if other people around you can't see it, then that's it. It completely loses its intrigue and effect. It's not interesting all the way through. Also, there's one scene later on in the film involving a swimming pool. If you've seen it, you know what I mean. In this scene, it really lowers the mystery of the creature, and I don't know, it feels kind of silly, and just the way it's played out, it's a little too action-packed in my opinion. It really wasn't a good sort of, you know, way of doing it, and by then I wasn't interested as much as I was before anyway, but by then it just solidified, final nail in the coffin. This isn't the film I thought it was going to be. And that really sucks. So if you're going to look at this film on the basis of it being, I like films that are scary, it's a horror film, it should be scary, half of this film is scary. Which isn't really enough. If you're going to look at it on the basis of being, you know, a narratively driven movie, the characters are fairly weak, they aren't that interesting. The whole idea of having to pass it on through sex is relatively well explored, but not enough. Like, don't get me wrong, I don't want this to be everyone up in here going, oh, hormones crazy, but it just could have had a little bit more meaning to it than it did. But I didn't really expect it to have, you know, it shouldn't be that deep. It's still a slasher movie at the end, a slow slasher movie, I must say, that embraces many stereotypes of the slasher genre, and it does it knowingly. It knowingly embraces these cliches and tries to put them on its head somewhat, you know, subvert them, but it doesn't always succeed, and it just adds the idea that this isn't the most original film that's ever been made, and any claims that it is are misguided. The ending of the film also feels really tacked on, that's not the right word, tacked off. It feels like the ending was taken off, and it's just like going for this whole open to interpretation thing, and having this image which sticks in your head, which, you know, it does, it's well shot, but it just ends and you feel like, oh, that's it. In the end, guys, I'm really sorry about this. I know this film's got incredible ratings, but I got to give It Follows a 6 out of 10. I really wanted to enjoy it more. I was really excited to see it. But in my opinion, the Babadook just absolutely destroys this film in terms of quality, scares, story, character development, characters, actors, all of it. It's just a much better film in my opinion. I may get around to reviewing it at some point, but, you know, It Follows, in my opinion, is okay, not bad. It's definitely not a bad movie, but it's got a lot of problems, as I've just told you. So there's my review, guys. Please don't get angry, but if you didn't get angry, please like and favourite in the boxes below. You know what to click, and please subscribe if you want to see more of these. There will always be more. It really, really helps me more than you know, and thank you so much for watching.